Have you ever noticed how the most innocent sounds can become the most terrifying when they appear at the wrong time, in the wrong place? 10-year-old Marcus had been hearing the ice cream truck's melody for 3 weeks now, always at dusk, always when he was alone. The tinkling notes of Turkey in the Straw would drift through his bedroom window, impossibly clear despite the closed glass, despite the fact that his house sat at the end of a dead-end street where ice cream trucks never ventured. The first time he heard it, Marcus had pressed his face against the window, breath fogging the glass as he searched the empty street below. Nothing. Just the fading orange light of sunset painting the cracked asphalt and his father's beer bottles glinting on the front porch. But the melody continued, sweet and persistent, calling to him with a promise he couldn't name. Marcus knew about ice cream trucks. Before his mother left, before his father started drinking himself unconscious every night, they used to chase the cheerful vehicle down their old street together. His mother would laugh as Marcus ran ahead, clutching crumpled dollar bills, his face bright with anticipation. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now, wrapped in a haze of before times that seemed increasingly unreal. Now, at 10 years old, Marcus had learned to move through his house like a ghost. He had memorized which floorboards creaked, which doors squeaked, which sounds would wake his father from his stupor and bring the belt whistling through the air. He had learned to make himself small, invisible, forgettable. But the ice cream truck seemed to see him anyway. On the 4th night of hearing the melody, Marcus finally gathered the courage to venture outside. The evening air was thick with humidity, and the smell of honeysuckle from Mrs. Patterson's overgrown garden next door. The music grew louder as he stepped onto the porch, and there it was, at the far end of the street, where the pavement disappeared into shadow. The truck was unlike any ice cream truck Marcus had ever seen. Its paint was pristine white, almost luminous in the gathering darkness, with colorful decals that seemed to shimmer and shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. The melody box played its tune with perfect clarity, each note hanging in the air like a physical thing he could almost touch. But it was the vendor that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. The man behind the window was tall and thin, wearing a crisp white uniform that matched the truck's paint. His face was kind, with deep-set eyes that seemed to hold an ocean of understanding. When he saw Marcus, he smiled, and it was the first genuine smile anyone had directed at the boy in months. "Hello there!" the vendor called, his voice carrying easily across the distance. "I've been waiting for you." Marcus felt his feet moving before his mind could catch up, drawn forward by something deeper than hunger, deeper than want. As he approached the truck, he could see that the freezer cases were filled with impossible treats, ice cream sandwiches that glowed with soft, internal light, popsicles in colors that had no names, sundaes topped with what looked like crystallized starlight. "I don't have any money," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle hum of the truck's engine. The vendor's smile never wavered. "That's not what I'm here for, son. Tell me, what troubles you?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. In his world, adults didn't ask about troubles. They created them, ignored them, or punished him for having them. But this stranger's eyes held no judgment, no threat, only patience. "My dad," Marcus began, then stopped. Talking about home felt like betrayal, even though home felt like a war zone. "He gets angry when he drinks, which is always now." The vendor nodded slowly, as if Marcus had confirmed something he already knew. "And your mother?" "Gone." The word tasted like ashes in Marcus's mouth. "She said she couldn't take it anymore. She said she'd come back for me, but you don't believe her." Marcus shook his head, tears threatening to spill over. "Nobody comes back." The vendor reached into his freezer and withdrew something that made Marcus gasp. It was a simple ice cream cone, vanilla soft serve twisted into a perfect spiral, but it radiated warmth instead of cold. The warmth of summer afternoons and birthday parties and bedtime stories read in gentle voices. "This one's special," the vendor said, extending the cone through the window. tastes like the best day you've never had. Marcus took the cone with trembling hands. The moment it touched his lips, the world transformed. He could taste laughter and safety and the feeling of being truly wanted. He could taste his mother's voice singing him to sleep and his father's hands lifting him high into the air instead of raising in anger. He could taste a future where he mattered, where he was loved, where he was enough. Tears streamed down his face as he ate, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of recognition, of remembering what hope felt like. "Why?" Marcus asked when the cone was finished, his voice stronger now. "Why are you here?" The vendor's expression grew serious. "Because some children carry burdens too heavy for their small shoulders. Because sometimes the universe notices when innocence is under siege. I appear to those who need me most, when they need me most." "Are you real?" "Real is a complicated word," the vendor replied. "Am I flesh and blood? Perhaps not. But am I here? Am I helping? Does it matter how I exist if I can make your existence more bearable?" Marcus considered this, his 10-year-old mind grappling with concepts far beyond his years. "Will you come back?" "When you need me, I'll be here." "But Marcus," the vendor leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Remember that you're stronger than you know. The ice cream I gave you, it didn't create anything new. It only showed you what was already inside you. The capacity for joy, for hope, for love. That's yours. That belongs to you, and no one can take it away." The truck's engine hummed louder, and Marcus realized the vendor was preparing to leave. Panic fluttered in his chest. "Wait! I don't even know your name!" "Names are for the living, son. I'm something else. Something between. But you can call me friend if you need to call me anything." As the truck began to roll away, its melody growing fainter, Marcus called out, "What if things don't get better? What if my dad doesn't stop drinking? What if my mom never comes back?" The vendor's voice drifted back through the evening air, warm and certain. "Then you'll survive anyway. Because that's what strong children do. They survive, and then they grow up to make sure other children don't have to be as strong as they were." The truck disappeared around the corner, but its melody lingered in the air for several more minutes, wrapping around Marcus like a protective embrace. When he finally returned to his house, his father was still passed out on the couch, empty bottles scattered around him like fallen soldiers. But something had changed. Marcus could feel it in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the supernatural ice cream and everything to do with the realization that he was not alone. Somewhere in the space between real and unreal, between hope and despair, someone was watching over the forgotten children of the world. That night, Marcus slept better than he had in months, and when his father's shouting woke him the next morning, the warmth was still there, a small flame of resilience that no amount of anger could extinguish. The ice cream truck returned many times over the following months, always when Marcus needed it most. Sometimes it brought treats that tasted like courage, sometimes like patience. Once, memorably, it brought ice cream that tasted like the mother's love Marcus thought he'd lost forever. And gradually, things did begin to change. Not because of magic, but because a boy who had been shown his own strength learned to use it. Marcus began talking to his school counselor. He started making friends. He discovered that there were adults in the world who could be trusted, who wanted to help. Years later, when Marcus had grown into a man who worked with troubled children himself, he would sometimes hear the distant melody of an ice cream truck at dusk. He would smile then, remembering the vendor who had appeared when a lost boy needed hope most. And sometimes, just sometimes, he would see his own clients perk up at that same melody, their eyes brightening with inexplicable hope. In those moments, Marcus would know that somewhere between the real and unreal, the friend was still making his rounds, still finding the children who needed him most. After all, some hungers can only be satisfied by magic, and some magic exists solely to feed the hungry hearts of children who have learned too young that the world can be a cold and frightening place. The ice cream truck remembers them all.